Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of MLM Renegade. I'm really excited today. We're going to talk about what network marketers and superheroes have in common. Check it out. So here's the million-dollar question. How are network marketers like us, who've tried everything their upline ever suggested to be successful, and yet still struggled, who grew up with technology and aren't stuck in the 20th century, how are we supposed to grow our downlines and our bank accounts and yet still have time for real life? My name is J.R. McKee. Join me as we explore how to use 21st century learning and technology to grow our downlines and build lasting wealth. Simply put, this is MLM done different. Welcome to MLM Renegade. Alright guys, I don't know about you, but I love superhero movies, alright? Avengers, Spider-Man, Ant-Man, Batman, Superman, whoever. Shoot, we got Captain Marvel coming out here in a little bit. I love superhero movies, alright? So, in fact, I love watching some of the superhero series. You know, Netflix had Daredevil and Punisher. Those are fun to me. I want to get into what superheroes and network marketers have in common, though. And I'll tell you, it's probably never more prevalent than there's one particular superhero that I think best personifies a network marketer, and that's Spider-Man. Okay, you could do Ant-Man as well, but I love Spider-Man, right? So Spider-Man started out, he was a nerdy kid, he liked science. And he goes on a science trip or a trip to the museum or to a science lab. I don't remember. It depends on which movie you're watching, right? But he gets bit by some spider that's got basically superhuman powers. Gives him superhuman powers. So now he can use. Now he can actually use the webs, and he slings all over the place like you've seen him, right? But it's still Peter Parker, this nerdy kid who's out there now exercising these superhuman habits to fight crime, right? Well, network marketers can be a lot the same. We all have an origin story, okay? We've got a background that makes us who we are. You know, if Peter Parker wasn't a nerd, he wouldn't have gone to this scientific lab where these super spiders were, okay? Now, I use nerd in the highest sense of the world. Frankly, nerds rule the world, let's be honest. In fact, I tell my kids that every single day, that nerds rule the world. And look at Bill Gates, right? Look at Steve Jobs to a certain extent. You know, they're nerds, and that's totally okay. And in fact, I encourage that because, like I said, nerds rule the world. But today, I want to talk a little bit about origin stories, and each of us needs to think about our origin story as it relates to our business and as it relates to our life, because ultimately we're all going somewhere, and we're going somewhere different. So with the origin story, I want to step back. I talked about this a little bit in the very first episode. Hopefully, I've gotten better over the last dozen or so episodes, but I'm going to continue to grow this thought process. And I want to talk about my origin story. And there's some important parts of the origin story. But first, I want to talk about where I came from, right? So I grew up in Seattle. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I'm definitely the older brother, and that taught me a lot of things. Taught me to really care about my siblings, care about other people. But I also, I'm a big tease, right? I like to rib people. I like to tease, and that's partly because of that's who I am. But I created this podcast as an outlet, a creative outlet. It lets me share my thoughts. While I was in college, I actually blogged a little bit, and I found that cathartic and therapeutic in a lot of ways. And especially, at that point in time, I was going through a divorce and some other things. It's a great way for me to get that out. And I've actually rediscovered recently journaling, and trying to do that more because it gives me that creative outlet and lets me get my thoughts outside of my own head. But as a part of my origin story, so I grew up in Seattle, and when I was 17 years old, I had a friend somebody we went to church with, who owned a sporting goods store, and he invited me to come up to a tent sale that they were doing. It was a 3-day tent sale, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in just north of Seattle at the Northgate Mall. So, and I had never sold anything before, right? I like to talk with people, I like to engage, but I hadn't sold anything. And I went to this tent sale, kind of naive, and over the course of the next 3 days, I sold more than $30,000 in merchandise, bicycles and skates primarily. And I figured out which products had a spiff on them. A spiff is a sales guy word for, an extra bonus. And which products would move the fastest and which ones people liked. And I got excited, and I just kept moving and moving and moving. And it was 12 and 14 hours days. I was on my feet. In fact, we were in a parking lot, essentially, underneath a tent. So, I mean, my feet were sore. My back got a little sore. But at the end of those 3 days, I had $1,000 to speak of. Okay, $1,000 for a 17-year-old kid is an enormous amount of money. Okay, that opened my eyes to what could happen in sales. And so I carried that forward. I did that. I worked at the bookstore in college, and then after I got back from South America for 2 years, I went to work for the cell phone companies. And I worked my way through college. I went to school full time. I worked full time, and I sold a whole lot of cell phones. In fact, this is kind of where my work ethic kicked in pretty hard for me, because I realized that while I had coworkers who would go and take a half hour, an hour lunch, if I quickly went in the back room and ate something, I did a lot of like the TV dinners or microwave meals, like Michelinas back then were a thing, right? And I would microwave those, and I would come back and immediately get right back on the floor. I'd spend maybe 5 minutes for a lunch break, maybe 5 minutes. What I figured out though is that while they were gone at lunch, I could sell 2 or 3 more phones. And if I had a quota of 4 or 5 in a day that I was trying to sell, 3 or 4 more, because everybody was gone, I instantly had more opportunity. And so I took advantage of that. And it worked. Okay, I got to go on a President's Club trip with Sprint. We went to Cancun, and it was amazing. I got recognized by the president of the company, and and that was definitely an ego boost for me. But I realized, what? If I'm willing to work my butt off, I can do anything, and I still believe that, and I still know that. So one of those things that I realized that I was good at was interacting with people and working hard. But sometimes I've also figured out things that I'm not good at, right? And I work to establish those. Now, one of my desires with the MLM Renegade podcast is to empower people who are in network marketing, whether it be working with my team or working with their own teams, empower them with the skills and the knowledge that they need to work harder and smarter. Okay? I don't understand sometimes this thought of be like, oh, work smarter, not harder. Like, why would you do that? Work both. Like, if you can do both, you're going to come out so far ahead. I picked up again this is the second or third time I've read this book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. Read it. Awesome book. It's one of the books I did not read last year. I'd read it previously. I think I read it right towards the tail end of 2017. So it wasn't in the 2018 reading list. But this year, it definitely is. And it is awesome. Okay. But one of the things, if you're willing to, the whole idea behind the 10X rule is that if you're willing to do 10 times more than you were doing, you're going to have 10 times the results. So if you said, oh, I want to make $100,000 this year, why are you setting that goal? You're going to undercut yourself. Maybe instead you want to make $1 million. And then if you happen to only make $700,000, oh my goodness, what a problem that is, right? Okay. So that's the goal and the mission here. Those are my desires. That's what I want to help with. That's why I'm creating these courses around Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, using sales funnels, affiliate marketing. All of those things give us an opportunity to reach those goals. Now, when I first started in network marketing, I won't go back to when I first started. The first time that I really started to see some success, I had a mentor who brought me in, and I got introduced to him by a coworker. And we started working together, and it was a bit of a flash in the pan. I achieved the first rank, but it wasn't built on anything sustainable, and so it fell flat. And then ultimately, he actually ended up leaving the company that we were working with and going off and doing something else. He and I still talk fairly regularly, and I still consider him a good friend. And but at that point in time, it didn't work for us. Now, Fast forward a couple of years, and I had another friend, a guy who actually had been my manager when I worked for Sprint, and so he knew some of my some of my strengths, right? But he got involved with one of his neighbors in a fairly new network marketing company. This is 2010, and they had some experience. This guy, my friend Kirk is his name. Anyway, Kirk was brought into the business by a couple of his neighbors. Now, one of his the husband-wife combo. The husband had an extensive background in search engine optimization. Okay, and I had been working a little bit in this arena as well with SEO, and so I was really excited about this because I'm like, oh my goodness, people are searching for these products, and we're going to be able to get them and funnel them to us, and it's going to help create our business, and we're going to be able to basically firewall ourselves with a baseline and have this great residual income coming in. And the vision of it, I was excited about, and the products were pretty decent. You know, in fact, I still use some of those products today, even though I'm not involved with that company anymore. But the thing that I realized is that, you know, there's still a lot of work involved. There's still hard work. I was going for the smarter and not the harder end, and it became it was a problem. You know, it was this wall that I ran up against, and at that point in time, I wasn't ready to get past it. Okay, and fast forward probably 5 years. You know, I'd left network marketing alone. My wife and I had sworn it off. And you know, it was kind of a rough patch. You know, I focused more on my sales career and did well. And we actually were able to achieve one of the goals, which was actually to have my wife quit her full-time job. She works 1 day a week now. She's a registered nurse. And in fact, I need to have her on the podcast so you guys can get to know her, because she is as big a part of this as I am. I may be the voice, but she is definitely a major driver for me. But she was able to cut back to 1 day a week, which basically lets her keep her license and have some mental sanity from dealing with kids all week long. But she got involved with the company we're with currently, and with one of the products, and she was excited about it. In fact, she didn't want to get involved with the company. She started using the product and saw some phenomenal results, and then shared it on social media and sold some product. In fact, sold quite a bit of product, made a few $100s in the course of like a day and a half. And when she did that, some of the leaders who were kind of in the group, if you will, above her, said, hey, you know, you should try and do the business. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it. And then they came back and they're like, no, really, you should do this. No, we're not going to do it. My husband and I swore this off, and we're not going to. Well, then what happened is they had an event. And I'm a firm believer in events. Go to your events. Our team actually has a major event going on this weekend I'm really excited for, because it is a shot in the arm for my belief. It's a shot in the arm for helping me to recenter on my targets and my goals. And anyway, she got invited to this event, and she denied him. And then the day before, she came to me and said, hey, JR, I really think I kind of want to go to this. And it was like it cost like $75 or $100 to go. And she wasn't quite sure how she felt about it, but she was at least inspired enough to give it a shot. And I said, absolutely, go. You should go and do that, because one, you'll never know what happens if you don't. And she went to this 2-day event and came home absolutely ablaze, on fire. She was so excited. And let me tell you, the epiphany that I had, and that she and I had together with this, was the use of social media. The world had changed over the previous 5 years, and suddenly I could get in contact with people all over the world. I could reach out to people who I had spoken with, who I knew and loved in Chile, right? I could talk to people in Spain and in England and in Russia and in Africa, all over the world. Let alone here in the United States. And that epiphany got me forward, and we created a plan, and we saw a vision, and we went and we worked, and I cannot remember a time that we have worked harder than the latter half of 2017. It was awesome, you know. But you know what? So we were trying to actually qualify for an incentive trip. And the incentive trip was, I mean, it was a once in a lifetime sort of vacation that was all expenses paid. And so that's, those sorts of things drives me. I love to travel. Okay, I really, really, really enjoy getting out and seeing other parts of the world. We have some goals now. We're actually, I want to travel some more to South America, actually, as we're building teams down there, and some of the parts of that world that they're important to me. But I love to travel, and so setting the sights on that goal was hugely important. And we worked hard, and we had ups and downs, and one of the conflicts that we ran into was our team was growing, but it got we started to try and manage it a little bit too much instead of focusing more on us, and it was almost our downfall. In fact, it got to the point where it was the week in between Christmas and New Year's, and we had quite a ways to go to meet this goal. It was attainable, it was reachable, but man, it was going to be tough. And that week in between Christmas and New Year's, I reached out to people. Thankfully, we have an opportunity to do some work, some humanitarian work through our company. Actually helps children in Africa with meals. But we were actually able to get some credit for that work that we do towards this goal of going on this trip. And I reached out to some people in the business world who weren't involved with network marketing, but who I knew who had great hearts, and that they were going to look to see this as an opportunity to help other kids. And I reached out to them, and we were able to make enough of an impact there that on December 31st of 2017, basically about an hour and a half before qualification ended on January 1st, we hit our goal. And it was awesome. And we were excited and honestly couldn't hardly believe it. And then a few months later, we were able to take that incredible trip, a trip for the ages, trip of a lifetime, and it was awesome. But what it taught me is, through my origin story is continuing to develop, right? I'm not the same person today as when we started in the summer of 2017 with our network marketing business. And that's a good thing. I'm not the same person today that I was when I was 17, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? I'm, just about 40 years old. I hopefully I've grown up a little bit since I was 17. But, in a lot of ways, I'm still the same, goofy, sarcastic kid that I've always been. Now, honestly, one of my goals, and I need to write this down because I haven't written it down, but it's a goal in my heart, is I want to be a little bit less sarcastic, less snarky in 2019. Because one of the things that I've realized is that snark is really negative energy, and I don't need more negative energy in my life. There's plenty of it to go around. What I need is more positivity and more positive energy. And so, as I look back on the origin story, I may not be, shooting spider webs from my wrists and swinging around downtown Manhattan, but what it does give me the opportunity to do is look back and see how far I've come. When I climbed Mount Rainier, one of the coolest things was standing on the summit, and I've got a picture of our boots next to the USGS spike that's at the summit. Basically, it marks the official marker from the United States Geological Survey that says that this is 14,411 feet. But when you look up from there, and the day that we summited was clear as, it was amazing how clear it was that day. But that day, you could see all the way to the north to Mount Baker and to the south past Mount Hood. In fact, you could see the Puget Sound there in the Seattle area, and there was actually a ferry boat crossing the sound, okay? As far as the eye can see has a new meaning to me now. That's part of my backstory, okay? As far as the eye can see is different now, and my eyes can see a lot of different things. And I'm excited about the direction that it's going. Now, life is a whole lot more about direction than it is velocity. Okay, let me say that again. Life is more about the direction that you're heading and less about the velocity at which you're arriving there. Now, I get impatient. Okay, we all get impatient, right? I've been doing this for a few years now, and why haven't I made it? Okay, let's analyze that again. Okay, when I learned to, I learned to ski. It took me years to learn to ski and to get to the level that I am now, and the enjoyment level that I am now. It took a lot of hard work to get to the summit. Most people, when they work a business, okay, say somebody gets a job coming out of college. Now, I graduated with a 4-year degree. It took me longer than 4 years to get it, but I graduated with a bachelor's degree in economics, okay? With that, I spent 4 years putting in that work, and the jobs that people wanted to give me were $30,000 to $40,000 a year, something like that. At that point in time, it was actually kind of a disappointment because I've been working cell phones and been making really good money for a full-time student. Well, I got into software, and now my vision started to rise. Okay, but even that software job, the on target earning, or OTE as we call it, was like $80,000 a year. Okay, that's a really good income. It took 4 years of work to get to that $80,000 a year mark. Now, $80,000 a year, if we're keeping tabs here, that's what basically about $7,000 a month. Okay, before taxes. Now, if I want to have a business that's doing 10 or 15 or 25 or 50 or $100,000 a month, it took me 4-year degree to get to that $80,000 mark. How long should it take me to get to, 10x that? How long should that be? Okay, we get impatient. Don't lose patience. Realize the person that you're becoming along the way, that with each step, you are qualifying yourself to reach that ultimate goal. And when you reach that next step, take a look up and look for the next step. You don't have to see the entire trail. Okay? When we climbed Mount Rainier, we could see the summit and we could see what was in front of us, but I couldn't see how long it would actually take and how many crevasses where I had to cross on a ladder that was going over a 100-foot deep chasm, right? I couldn't see all those things, and that's okay. But if you can take the next step that's in front of you and then take the one after that, one step after another, you will get there. Don't be afraid to spend the time to achieve your goals. Don't be afraid to be audacious about your goals. Look at your backstory, see how far you've come, and realize pretty soon that you too can be Spider-Man. And one of your buddies, one of your mentors can be Iron Man, and you can help save the world one day. You guys, I'm really excited about this. I cannot wait to see what the next 50 and 100 episodes of MLM Renegade come out. I know that the training that we're producing is going to be life-changing for you guys, and it's going to enable you to change the way that you view your business each and every day. Go out there and make the most of this day and every day. See you next time. Hey, thanks for listening, and please remember to subscribe and leave feedback. Now, if you'd like some free training for your team, go to podcast.mlmrenegade.com and get your free 21st Century Recruiting Kickstarter.